Executive Director of Women's Fund. All right, Kelly, hey, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. It's so good to have you back with us. I haven't seen you in a couple weeks, I feel like.
A couple months, actually. Yeah.
Where's time going, right?
right, exactly.
So it's nice to have you back here. We're going to kind of continue the conversation on several issues. So yesterday we had a few very strong, powerful women in here talking about getting women into political power, and then talking about the conversation of women in national security jobs.
Sure.
So it's kind of been fun just to talk about women in different positions. So wanted to talk to you on talking about a few different items. Let's start off with talking about women in political power here in Rhode Island, kind of what our current state is, your thoughts on that, and,
Sure.
and kind of the movement to do so.
Yeah, sure. Well, certainly statistics show that when you have more women in the legislature at all different levels, whether it's city, town, state level, et cetera, regardless of what party they're affiliated with, things move better for women and families. Better policies get made for women and families as a whole. So across the nation, unfortunately, the U.S. doesn't have a great record of having women in power. However, in Rhode Island, we're doing okay. We have just over 30% representation, female representation at the state level as senators and representatives, which is good. We don't have as much at our city and town levels, and so that's definitely something that we need to grow.
Yeah.
And we recommend that if somebody is thinking about running for office and they're scared about doing something at the state level or the national level, start locally, start on your school board, start on your city council, start on a city or town committee, get your toes wet, figure out how things work, and then move up from there. Certainly, given the political landscape today, there are actually a number of different groups that are helping women to think about running for office. There's a group called Emerge Rhode Island that's helping women get into democratic politics. The Women's Fund is going to be partnering with a nonpartisan organization called Vote, Run, Lead, and we're bringing that group here this summer to do some workshops for women to just think about what it would be like to run for office. And then if they decide after that they do want to run, Vote, Lead will help them to think about how do they create a platform and how do they market it and how do they fundraise. So definitely stay tuned for that. But there's a lot of different groups that are thinking about this, and I know if you just do a search online, I'm sure you can find some of the latest news in Rhode Island about helping women get into politics.
That's fantastic. I mean, there's just been such a trend towards that, just getting more involved.
Absolutely.
And seeing more people representing what you stand for. Whether,
Absolutely.
Just on the woman's forefront.
Sure. Well, one thing to note is that on the Gender Equity Index, this is an index that looks at developed countries around the world. There are 144 countries that participate in the Gender Equity Index, and it looks at things like women in leadership. It looks at the gender wage gap. It looks at women across industries. It looks at education levels. Unfortunately, the U.S. is 44 out of 144 countries. We should be near the top. We don't even crack the top 10 right now. And part of that is because we don't have enough women in leadership. And so that's something that we're definitely working to change.
That we're striving to do.
Yeah.
One of the other things that we were talking about yesterday was getting women involved in national security positions. But something you and I were kind of talking about is this idea of women in jobs where they have been traditionally held by men. And maybe not so much on the national security side, but in other industries.
Yeah.
And so we were kind of talking about jobs that have been traditionally held by men, possibly labor jobs or jobs held by union workers.
Yeah.
So we're looking at hard labor jobs or trucking jobs. And is there a trend that we're seeing more women be recruited by these positions, or they are more actively involved in these positions? And is there something happening in Rhode Island?
Yes, as a matter of fact, there is. In fact, tomorrow there is a Women in the Trades event that is taking place at the Providence Career and Tech Academy. Sorry, I had to look at my notes. From 10 to 1. And it's an event that's for both girls who are in high school, as well as young women who are thinking about new careers, or somebody who's looking to change jobs. But it's specifically about how do women get into trade positions. So construction, would be one of them. Typically anything that's represented by unions, that's what this event is about. And there's going to be a panelist of women speakers who are going to talk about their jobs and talk about the great benefits that there are for women who work in the trades. Because if you're represented by a union, chances are that you're making a really good salary. You have the opportunity for growth and training, and you're making really great benefits. So we definitely feel like this is an area that there's a lot of attention that's being paid to, but more can be done. And so the Women's Fund is partnering with the Office of Diversity and Equity. It's out of the Department of Administration, as well as a number of different groups on this event tomorrow. And I highly recommend anybody who might be interested, go check it out.
Yeah, and there's such a need for, people are looking for jobs in Rhode Island. You know, there's a need for this. So finding that balance of where are their jobs open and building that skill set.
Absolutely. And the other piece of it is that, you know, we did a research study that I talked a little bit about last time that I was here that showed that women on average in Rhode Island just make an annual salary of just about $30,000. If you're working in the trades, it's immediately going to go upward from there. A lot of the typical types of jobs that women work in are office related, healthcare related, and a lot of minimum wage jobs, which can be really dead end. So having a job that's in the trades is something that will really help to raise the economic security for women and their families. Did you know that over 40% of women are breadwinners for their families?
Oh, I believe that.
Yeah, and when you think of all the single mothers that are out there,
totally
if you can get into the trades, this is a great way for you to take care of your family.
And just the fact that you think of any type of trade job, you think of that, what you said, benefits, I mean, you're set.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. So, you know, one of the things that the Women's Fund works on is something called systems change. And so some of the things that we're fighting for up at the State House are to increase the minimum wage, because more women predominantly make minimum wage than men, but also making sure that everybody has access to earned sick time. So those that make minimum wage typically don't get earned sick time. If you can't take a sick day and you're a single working mom, you have a choice. Are you going to stay home and take care of your kids and not make money that day for your family? Maybe you can't put food on the table or pay the rent that month because of that. Or, you know, maybe you lose your job. Or who do you find to take care of your kids?
Tough.
So again, if we can help women to move into careers that get them out of that minimum wage trap, help them get into positions that pay them benefits, even help them to bridge that wealth gap if they're working for companies that now help to pay for retirement costs and things like that. These are great things. So we definitely support women moving into jobs that have been traditionally male-oriented in the past.
And it's so interesting to see the trend that these male-oriented jobs of the past are now seeking after women, whether it's the boomers are retiring or whatever the case may be, that they're proactively seeking women and holding different events like this. Let's move on, because you just mentioned that, talking about getting paid sick time. Let's talk about, what's the status of this?
So all of the bills that we're working on right now are being held for further study, and really that means right now that they're
that could mean a number of things.
It could. Really what that means is at this point it's up to our community, up to people who really want to support this bill, to reach out to their legislators to say, hey, we really think that you need to vote for this, and you need to help bring this vote to the floor. Because that's where it's stuck right now. The minimum wage bills, the earned sick time bills, the gender equity bills, right now they're in committee, and we need to get them out of committee and onto the floor to be voted on. If they're not within the next month and a half, then we're going to have to start the process all over again. So if you believe in these bills, if you want them to get passed into law, please reach out to your legislators today.
So is there anything that you foresee holding up the paid sick leave? Is there anything that wouldn't be moving this on? Is there anything that's
well, like anything, there are pros and cons to bills. Certainly when I went to the State House to testify on behalf of these bills, there were other people who were testifying against it. There are different reasons why people feel like things should be passed and they shouldn't. There will be business costs that are attached to it. We believe that if you have a healthy employee, that they're much more likely to stay working with you, that your hiring costs go down. If you are able to give people some time off when they're sick, they're definitely going to be much better employees than if, that's not something that you provide for them.
Okay, so that's kind of the status on that. Let's talk a little bit about something else that you have been involved in. The Reproductive Healthcare Act. Mm-hmm. What's the involvement with your organization and kind of where does that stand?
Sure. So the Reproductive Healthcare Act is really about if Roe versus Wade goes down at the national level, now
which it very well could be.
It very well could happen. We are trying to, in Rhode Island, make it a law that it stays legal here in Rhode Island. Of course, we have a state where we have a lot of religious people who, for ethical reasons, are against the idea of reproductive choice. Again, the Women's Fund feels that it's a much better economic situation for women and their planned children if they're able to control their reproductive freedom. And so we would very much like to see this bill get passed into law. I don't know if it will be passed. Like the other bills that I talked about, is in committee. It's held up. But again, if you feel that this is important to the health of our community, if it's important to women to make choices on behalf of their families like this, then we ask you to reach out to your legislators about it.
And what has the feedback been like concerning this?
Well, it's very debated, there are people who weigh on the ethical ends of things. There are people who weigh in on the economic side of things. There are people who feel it's a human rights piece, both for the woman who wants to make a choice as well as for the unborn child. So, again, I step back and I say from the Women's Fund perspective, we know that the economic and health outcomes just turn out so much better for planned children that we believe that this is an important thing to pass into law into Rhode Island.
Yeah, and so I'm curious just to see how far this has gotten because it's such a highly contentious issue.
It is, and again, it hasn't been brought to vote, so it's one of those things. Yeah, we'll see how it goes for sure.
See how it goes. What else are you working on? You mentioned a couple other things to see. They're kind of just held right now, but because you have been so vocal in working on these issues for women, what can we see in the future? What can we work on?
Sure. So one of the other pieces of legislation that we would very much like to see made into law is the gender equity bill. And this law would mirror the law that went into effect in Massachusetts last year, where essentially it makes it illegal for a hiring manager to ask you what your last pay level was.
Oh, okay.
Because what happens is that since women are typically paid less than men, and over time they continue, that gap widens. If they're being paid based off of what they made in their last job, it's just perpetuating that gender wage gap. So by forcing hiring managers to hire within a specific range, and not basing it on what a previous salary was, we believe it becomes more fair about how salaries are set for positions. It makes it more equitable. By the way, all of the things that we're talking about, although they will impact positively for women, they're good things for men too. At the end of the day, if there's fairness in hiring practices, if there's equal access to earned sick days, if minimum wage increases, men are involved in that as well. So while we do it because we want to move the needle for women and families, men definitely benefit.
And I would think too, when you're filling out those job applications, isn't there always like a hint of anxiety, or sometimes maybe people might lie when they're filling out what was your earned wage?
Yep.
Because if you write too much, then maybe the company won't hire you. If you write too little, then
Right.
maybe you'll get lowballed on the
Right.
salary.
Exactly.
So there's
Exactly.
always that feeling of you never know what they're thinking when you're applying for a job.
Right.
And then you might not think about it from a male or female gender point of view.
Right.
So getting that passed. What feedback on that?
So we would say at this point that if somebody asks what salary you want, I will accept any salary that's fair for this position, that it's negotiable, but you are not necessarily the person that needs to name a number.
Yeah.
You know, let the hiring manager start, and then don't be afraid to negotiate. I think one of the things that happens with women, you know, we're taught to be nice. We're not necessarily taught negotiation skills. If there's something that you really want, and sometimes it may not be money, maybe it's more vacation time, or maybe it's more earned sick time, or something along those lines. Those are things that you can negotiate for. And women need to learn to be better advocates for themselves. And again, thinking about how do we want this to be better for me, for my family, so that I can be a great employee for you.
Yeah.
But definitely, I will accept any fair proposal, or this is negotiable. What is the range for this position?
Yeah. Well, and it's tough too when you're going into a job to put yourself out there and ask for certain things when you're looking for a job.
Right.
You know, it's tough to put yourself in that position, but you want to be able to get the best deal out of it.
Sure. Well, if nothing
It's
else,
tough.
I mean, it shows your hiring manager that you've got some spunk too.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. It's tough when you're looking for a job. Let's talk a little bit about the event that you have coming up on June 7th. This sounds fantastic.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this event. We're doing a Women Leading Change / Womenomics celebration. Womenomics celebration on June 7th at the RISD Museum. It's from 5:30 to 8:30 p.m. It's sponsored by U.S. Trust, Hinckley Allen, Blue Cross Blue Shield Rhode Island, a number of other different groups. And we are featuring an author by the name of Jackie Vanderbrug, who will be talking about gender lens investing. And essentially what she's talking about is women investing to benefit women. And so it's going to be a really interesting program. And then we're also going to be honoring a local. Her name is Susan Richer. She is the executive director of the Center for Women in Enterprise. She's going to receive our inaugural leadership award. And basically it's about, again, helping women to achieve success. That's what her nonprofit does. The Center for Women in Enterprise helps women start businesses and grow their businesses. And we want to recognize her for that. So you can find out about the event online at our website at wfri.org. If you click on our events calendar, you can also do a search through Eventbrite. Just look for Women Leading Change.
Yeah, and it's all on your Facebook page, and I'll put a link to it
Yeah,
as well.
great.
So people, if they're interested, because it looks like a great event, and being able to support women in the community start businesses. Do you foresee more women starting businesses and local businesses around here?
Actually, it already is. It is a true statistics that more women start businesses than men.
Oh.
The difference is that men tend to go for bigger loans when they're starting their businesses, and they get more venture capital. And that may be because of the relationships that they already have in place. It may be because they're a little bit more aggressive in getting funds. I think a lot of times women feel like, oh, I want to make sure that everything's going to be perfect before I go to the next level. It's part of the way that we're wired. So women start more businesses. They tend to be smaller than the businesses that men start. But that doesn't mean that over time that doesn't grow.
Yeah.
Women are great economic drivers in our community.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, Kelly, thank you so much for joining us. We're going to wrap things up here.
Great.
So, Kelly Nevins with the Women's Fund of RI. So much going on in Rhode Island. It's been fantastic. And
happy to be here. Love to talk to anybody who wants to learn more.
so great to have you in Rhode Island, and so great to have you here in the Navigant Credit Union broadcast.